We thought you old geezers weren't coming. As soon as the old man in gray appeared with 10 young men and women, the 2 old men in the sky above the valley reacted. One of them looked at the old man in gray and said indifferently, "Since both of you old geezers are here, how could I not come?" The old man in gray snorted, then looked down at the valley. In the center of the valley floor, a profound, boundless gray light barrier enveloped the area, making it impossible to see what was inside. "Go on in." The old man in gray's cloudy eyes lit up, and his voice carried a sense of authority. Yes, as soon as the old man in gray finished speaking, the 10 young men and women flew out, their bodies plummeting towards the gray light barrier. The next moment, 7 young men and 2 young women passed through the gray light barrier, disappearing from the 3 old men's sight. Only one young man, who looked to be nearly 40 years old, remained. He landed on the gray light barrier, completely blocked. At the same time, the gray light barrier trembled. You concealed your true age?" Seeing this, the old man in gray's face changed dramatically. The other 2 old men also couldn't help but frown. Before the young man could react, the air around his body rippled as if it had been sucked dry. Bang! A loud bang echoed, and the young man's body exploded without warning, turning into a rain of blood that completely vanished from this world. Someone over 40 years old actually dares to dream of entering the Martial Emperor's secret treasure. Naive. One of the other 2 old men couldn't help but sneer above the vast plain. Whoosh! A purple lightning bolt streaked across the sky, heading northwest. It's been almost a month, and this grassland still hasn't ended? The person traveling through the sky above the grassland was Duan Lingtian. Duan Lingtian's brows were tightly furrowed, and a hint of confusion appeared on his face. At my speed, this much time would be enough for me to return to the 5-element sect in the region south of the northern desert, yet I still haven't reached the real Martial Emperor's secret treasure. Duan Lingtian gave a wry smile. How? Big is the Martial Emperor's secret treasure that Martial Emperor expert created? It can't be bigger than the northern desert region, can it? Thinking of this, Duan Lingtian felt a chill in his heart. The Martial Emperor's secret treasure was an underground project located deep beneath the northern desert region. If its area was larger than the northern desert region, then it would undoubtedly span the entire underground of the northern desert region. If it were to collapse, the entire northern desert region would experience a massive earthquake. 3 days later. Is that the end of the grassland? Duan Lingtian, who had become somewhat numb from his continuous journey, instantly saw the black mist appearing in the distance ahead, separating the grassland. At this moment, seeing this black mist, Duan Lingtian felt a strange sense of familiarity. He knew that he had reached the end of the grassland. As long as he entered the black mist, he would arrive at the true Martial Emperor's secret realm. Wind sweeps clouds. Without any hesitation, Duan Lingtian accelerated, transforming into a gust of wind and blowing into the black mist. Upon entering the black mist, Duan Lingtian's vision went dark. After flying for a while, a small speck of light appeared in the pitch-black environment. Martial Emperor's secret treasure. Duan Lingtian knew that the small speck of light was likely the entrance to the true Martial Emperor's secret treasure. What he needed to do now was to pass through it and reach the true Martial Emperor's secret treasure. The treasures in the Martial Emperor's secret treasure, ordinary pills and spirit weapons, hold no allure for me. As the small speck of light grew larger in front of Duan Lingtian, he thought to himself, unless there are some special treasures, otherwise I'm only interested in those profound fragments. With that thought, Duan Lingtian arrived at the entrance of the true Martial Emperor's secret treasure, a cave opening large enough for one person to pass through. The other side of the opening was as bright as day. Enter without any hesitation. Duan Lingtian flew through the cave opening. Almost at the same time, the Martial Emperor expert's message once again entered Duan Lingtian's ears. Remember this place. This is not only the entrance for you to enter the Martial Emperor's secret treasure, but also the exit for you to leave the Martial Emperor's secret treasure. When you pass through the cave opening, the inscription array at the opening will record your aura. From this moment on, only you yourself can enter and exit this cave opening. The Martial Emperor expert's message ended abruptly here. Only I can enter and exit this cave opening. Duan Lingtian couldn't help but look back at the cave opening behind him. The other side of the opening was a hazy gray, seemingly blending in with the surrounding cave walls. If one didn't observe carefully, they wouldn't even notice its existence. Searching through the memories of the reincarnation Martial Emperor, Duan Lingtian quickly understood the principle of this kind of inscription array. It was similar to a spatial ring after it had been recognized as its master. Unless the master died, it would not recognize a second master. However, The inscription array covering this cave opening was somewhat different. Even if the recognized person died, it would not allow a second person to enter or exit. In other words, after I've gained enough benefits from the Martial Emperor's secret treasure, I can only leave through this cave opening. It's the same for everyone else. They each have a dedicated cave opening and can only leave through it. Soon, Duan Lingtian realized this. After realizing it, he began to survey his surroundings. What met his eyes was an empty cavern, as if it had been hollowed out by force. Although this was a cave deep underground, it was not lacking in light as bright as day. There must be an inscription array inscribed and arranged with night-luminous pearls as materials around here. Duan Lingtian easily guessed the reason. The cavern was very large, with a floor area as big as a standard football field on Earth in Duan Lingtian's previous life. There were a total of 4 exits, leading in 4 different directions. After searching the cavern for a while and finding no treasures, Duan Lingtian casually chose an exit in one direction and flew out. Following that, Duan Lingtian found himself in another cavern. The difference between this cavern and the previous one was like the difference between a hall and a room. The previous cavern only had 4 exits, but standing in this cavern, Duan Lingtian could see over a dozen different exits, leading to over a dozen different places. This place? It's like a maze! Duan Lingtian shook his head with a wry smile, then, once again, casually found an exit and flew out. Duan Lingtian traveled continuously without stopping. An hour later, Duan Lingtian not only hadn't found any treasures, but he hadn't even seen a single person, nor had he encountered any dangers. There aren't any attack inscription arrays? Duan Lingtian was a little surprised. As soon as the thought crossed his mind, Duan Lingtian flew into an even larger cavern. This cavern looked like a vast training ground. Duan Lingtian stood inside, surveying the cavern, and for a moment, he felt incredibly small. Suddenly, as if sensing something, Duan Lingtian abruptly looked up towards the center of the cavern's ceiling. There, an exquisite box was embedded, with half of it exposed. Finally found one. Duan Lingtian's eyes lit up. Although he wasn't sure if he would be interested in what was inside the exquisite box, it was, after all, the first treasure he had discovered since entering the Martial Emperor's secret treasure. This was a good start. Wind sweeps clouds. Without any hesitation, Duan Lingtian flew out, intending to retrieve the exquisite box. However, as soon as he flew halfway, as if sensing something, Duan Lingtian's face instantly changed dramatically. His body moved, and he hastily retreated, transforming into a purple lightning bolt and returning to where he had stood before. Whoosh! Almost at the same time, a yellowish-brown lightning bolt streaked across the sky, passing through the spot where Duan Lingtian had just been, stirring up a series of piercing wind howls. Finally, the yellowish-brown lightning bolt landed on the ground, disappearing from sight, leaving only a small, bottomless hole as if pierced by a sharp arrow. Duan Lingtian gasped, a cold sweat breaking out on his body from fright. Fortunately, his reaction was quick. Otherwise, his head would have been pierced through just now. Rumble. 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 Just as Duan Lingtian was feeling a lingering fear, a series of loud noises reached his ears. At the same time, he felt the ground beneath him tremble and the entire cavern began to shake, as if an earthquake were occurring. Not good. His spiritual energy extended outwards, and Duan Lingtian immediately discovered that the aura of many inscription arrays around him were fluctuating violently, clearly having been activated. Upon realizing this, Duan Lingtian's face changed moments. Later, in various parts of the cavern floor, streams of yellowish-brown energy rose, quickly taking shape and transforming into yellowish-brown puppets. Before long, hundreds of yellowish-brown puppets appeared. Their eyes flickered with yellowish-brown flames, and they immediately looked at Duan Lingtian, locking onto him tightly. How extravagant! Seeing the hundreds of yellowish-brown puppets that appeared before him, Duan Lingtian couldn't help but click his tongue in amazement. Through the memories of the reincarnation Martial Emperor, he knew that, within each of the yellowish-brown puppets before him, there was an earth-profound fragment, which was one of their sources of power. Of course, their power wasn't solely from earth-profound intent. They also had elemental energy. Inside their bodies, more or less, there were some inscription arrays formed by elemental stones, providing them with elemental energy, allowing them to fight like ordinary martial artists, using a fused earth, profound intent, and elemental energy against their enemies. These puppets are different from the earth puppets I encountered in the Sword Emperor's treasure vault. The latter had difficulty utilizing the power of the earth-profound fragments embedded within them. The former, however, can fully display the power of the earth-profound fragments embedded within them. Duan Lingtian looked around at the hundreds of approaching puppets with a solemn expression. He knew in his heart that he was now facing a group of beings whose strength was no less than that of void transformation stage martial artists. The mantis stalks the cicada, unaware of the oriole behind it. Duan Lingtian didn't notice that in a corner of the cavern a figure was lurking there. Boom! Soon, a yellowish-brown puppet, its legs pushing off the ground, dashed like the wind straight towards Duan Lingtian. From its body, milky-white elemental energy surged, then merged with the rising earth insight to form rolling yellowish-brown. Power coiling around its body, helping it achieve maximum speed. Whoosh! At the same time, above the head of this yellowish-brown puppet, first 100 ancient horned dragon phantoms appeared, followed by another 200 ancient horned dragon phantoms. 7th level void prying. Stage elemental energy, 1st level. High-grade earth insight. Seeing this, Duan Lingtian breathed a sigh of relief. He had truly been worried that the group of puppets in front of him contained earth insight fragments above the 7th level. If that were the case, he would undoubtedly be in trouble today. The puppet that first rushed towards Duan Lingtian quickly resonated with the entire ground, its yellowish-brown power spreading, no longer distinguishing between itself and the earth. Whoosh! Above the void, beside the 300 ancient horned dragon phantoms, another 100 ancient horned dragon phantoms appeared. It can even use earth insight to borrow earth power. Besides lacking intelligence and being unable to use spirit artifacts, what's the difference between them and human martial artists? Staring blankly at the 400 ancient horned dragon phantoms rushing towards him, Duan Lingtian couldn't help but show a bitter smile. Swoosh! At the same time, the yellowish-brown puppet reached Duan Lingtian, its speed unaffected by its seemingly clumsy body. It swung a punch, aiming straight for Duan Lingtian's forehead, like a cannonball fired. From a barrel, the puppet's fist was wrapped in vast yellowish-brown power, rolling out with earth-shattering force, the air being compressed to create bursts of ear-piercing sonic booms. Boom, 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 boom. The power, comparable to that of 400 ancient horned dragons, accompanied by continuous sonic booms, swept towards Duan Lingtian in an instant, about to land on him. Duan Lingtian, who had been preparing, met the punch without fear, unleashing all his elemental energy. With 4 insights following him like shadows, a power comparable to 800 ancient horned dragons sweeping out. Bang! As Duan Lingtian's fist met the puppet's fist, a loud bang echoed. Duan Lingtian stood rooted to the spot, unmoving. In contrast, cracks appeared on the puppet's fist, spreading continuously, then extending throughout its entire body. The next moment, the puppet crashed to the ground, turning into a pile of shattered stones, with a yellowish-brown fragment mixed in, particularly conspicuous. 1st level earth insight fragment. Duan Lingtian raised his hand, a wisp of elemental energy extending out, coiling around the fragment and lifting it, then storing it in his spatial ring. Although this 1st level earth insight fragment was of no use to him, it was still an insight fragment after all, of considerable value and might be useful later. So strong. The person hiding in the corner of the cave was a young man in blue, who witnessed Duan Lingtian blast the puppet with a single punch, his face uncontrollably changing greatly. That puppet, with all its power, could unleash the strength of 400 ancient horned dragons, but it was still blown apart by his punch in a head-on clash. Is he a disciple of the North Dark Sect? When did such a figure appear in the North Dark Sect? The blue-clad youth took a deep breath, a hint of apprehension appearing between his brows, while secretly guessing the identity of the purple-clad youth before him. It seems I can only go for the box containing the treasure when he's being surrounded by the remaining puppets. Otherwise, if he discovers me, I'll be dead for sure. The blue-clad youth made up his mind. Duan Lingtian was naturally unaware of all this. After killing one puppet, his attention fell on the remaining group of puppets. At this moment, the remaining group of puppets also made their move. Swoosh, 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 swoosh. Just as Duan Lingtian was tensing up, a group of puppets rushed towards him from all directions, their speed no less than that of the puppet Duan Lingtian had just blown apart. In fact, among these puppets, there were many whose strength far surpassed that of the one puppet. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. Accompanying the encirclement of over 100 puppets were tens of thousands of ancient horned dragon phantoms, clawing and baring their fangs, rushing towards Duan Lingtian from all directions with overwhelming momentum. The yellowish-brown flames in the eyes of each puppet surged and raged, staring intently at Duan Lingtian, as if determined to fight him to the death. Duan Lingtian knew that for these puppets, which lacked human intelligence, there was only one most straightforward and direct method: to utterly destroy them. Only then could the current crisis be resolved. Unbeknownst to him, a sword appeared in Duan Lingtian's hand, a sword emanating waves of destructive aura. Precisely the quasi-emperor grade spirit sword he had obtained in the Sword Emperor's treasure vault. Although among the group of puppets rushing towards him, the strongest, even with the aid of earth power, possessed a strength comparable to only 700 ancient horned dragons. The problem was, he wasn't facing 1 or 2 puppets, but over 100. The power of these puppets might not be able to combine, but if they were to descend upon him in an overwhelming wave, allowing them to gain the upper hand, even 10 lives wouldn't be enough for him. What he needed to do now was break out of the encirclement and then defeat these puppets one by one. If he were to clash with them head-on, that would absolutely be courting death. Boom, 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 boom! The 100 puppets rushed towards Duanling Tian, all throwing punches, compressing the air, and creating bursts of noisy, ear-piercing sonic booms, continuous and unending. Not only that, as the sonic booms spread, the airflow in the air was rapidly compressed, gushing out invisible airwaves, stirring up vast gusts of wind that filled the large cave with dust. 9 dragon-inch glow flash. Facing the encirclement of over 100 puppets, Duanling Tian, who was well prepared, looked to one side, his entire body soaring out, the quasi-emperor grade spirit sword in his hand trembling, vast power sweeping out through it. Immediately, 3 solid divine dragons roared out, their 3 pairs of eyes flashing with brilliant light, shooting out 6 extreme-inch glows, instantly killing the 6 puppets on that side. With the 6 puppets down, a small gap appeared in the encirclement. Wind. Sweeping clouds. Seizing this opportunity, Duanling Tian unleashed his movement martial skill, transforming into a gust of wind, swiftly blowing out, evading the encirclement of the puppets. However, after he left the encirclement, the group of puppets still pursued him. Although they lacked intelligence, they now seemed to regard Duanling Tian as an implacable enemy. It was as if their actions would not cease until Duanling Tian was dead. Duanling Tian, having broken out of the encirclement, faced the 100 attacking puppets, snorted coldly, his figure swaying like the wind, and in a moment he swept towards a dozen or so puppets on one side not far away. A 9 dragon-inch glow flash. Sword drawing technique. Each time the sword in Duanling Tian's hand swung, either 3 divine dragons surged out, shooting 6 extreme-inch glows, or it transformed into a bolt of lightning, destroying a puppet. I didn't expect his strength to be so great. I can't wait any longer. If I wait any longer, he'll definitely slaughter all the remaining puppets. The blue-clad youth, hiding in the corner, gritted his teeth, making up his mind. Seeing that Duanling Tian's attention was not on the ceiling in the center of the cave, the blue-clad youth took a deep breath, flew out, and transformed into a bolt of lightning, heading straight for the ceiling. Duanling Tian, currently unilaterally crushing and destroying a group of puppets, was fully immersed in the battle and naturally did not notice anyone appearing, nor did he notice anyone trying to take the exquisite box on the ceiling in the center of the cave. That exquisite box was precisely the one containing the treasure left behind by that Martial Emperor expert. And the 100 puppets Duanling Tian was currently facing were the trial one needed to overcome to obtain the treasure. Now, while Duanling Tian was dealing with the trial here, someone was secretly trying to steal the treasure. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. Duanling Tian's sword struck like lightning, like a venomous snake, each strike effortlessly destroying 1 or several puppets. Not a single puppet could survive under his sword. Boom, 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 boom. One by one, the unintelligent puppets, after their companions were killed, showed no fear and continued to fiercely rush towards Duanling Tian, to the death. However, their fate was without exception, only destruction. At the same time, the blue-clad youth's figure had already approached the ceiling in the center of the cave. He struck like lightning, taking down the exquisite box embedded in the ceiling. Looking at the exquisite box in his hand, a brilliant smile appeared on the blue-clad youth's face. He had succeeded. After he struggles to the death and kills all the puppets, he'll only then realize that this treasure has been taken by someone else first. He'll probably be so angry he'll spit up more than 3 liters of blood, won't he? The blue-clad youth thought, glancing triumphantly towards Duanling Tian's location. However, that glance made him almost burst with rage, because he discovered that at the same time he pulled the exquisite box from the ceiling, the puppets that had been attacking the purple-clad youth all stopped their movements and turned to look at him. The yellowish-brown flames in their eyes continuously surged, seemingly declaring their anger. Escape! Seeing the group of puppets about to abandon the purple-clad youth and rush towards him, the blue-clad youth's face changed drastically. Without hesitation, he moved and fled into the distance. Swoosh! 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 Almost the moment the blue-clad youth moved, The remaining dozens of yellowish-brown puppets all abandoned Duan Ling Tian and pursued him. What's going on? The puppet's actions made Duan Ling Tian momentarily stunned, and he instinctively turned to look. With just one glance, a layer of frost appeared on his face. Trying to take something of mine, Duan Ling Tian's? The next moment, Duan Ling Tian's figure moved, transforming into a purple lightning bolt, following the group of puppets. Whoosh! The blue-clothed youth was incredibly fast. As he fled, 400 ancient horned dragon phantoms galloped above, his head swift as the wind. A first-level void transformation martial artist. He had comprehended the first-level void transformation concept. Is he someone who came in through another entrance? Duan Ling Tian's gaze turned cold as he swiftly gave chase, quickly surpassing a group of earthy yellow puppets, and easily reaching a short distance behind the blue-clothed youth. Wind-sweeping clouds. Moving again, Duan Ling Tian caught up to the blue-clothed youth. His quasi-emperor-grade spirit sword flickered, transforming into a streak of lightning that flashed by, the sound of the sword's hum appearing for only a fleeting moment. Cuff! The blue-clothed youth didn't even react. A clearly visible sword mark had already appeared on his throat, and as he coughed, the sword mark split open, gushing out dazzling blood. Boom! 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 Immediately after, the blue-clothed youth, along with the box containing the treasure, fell to the ground, carried by inertia as he slid across the ground, his body scraping along for tens of meters before finally stopping. At the same time, the exquisite box also fell to the ground, opening with a thud. A fragment emanating a profound, earthy yellow true essence appeared before Duan Ling Tian's eyes. Gi, Grand Earth Profound Truth fragment? Seeing this fragment, Duan Ling Tian, who had just caught up, couldn't help but narrow his pupils. He then eagerly raised his hand, using his true essence to pull the fragment from the exquisite box into his hand. Not good. Almost the moment he held the fragment in his hand, Duan Ling Tian's extended spiritual energy sensed a familiar aura on the box, the aura of an inscription array. Congratulations, young man. This 7th level Emperor Realm Grand Earth Profound Truth fragment is yours. The voice of that Martial Emperor powerhouse emanated from within the exquisite box, spreading far and wide, carrying an extremely terrifying penetrative power. It's actually an improved sound-gathering array. Duan Ling Tian frowned. Even when activated, the sound-gathering array's sound only spreads within a 100-meter radius. However, an improved sound-gathering array possessed an extremely terrifying penetrative power, capable of spreading sound within a 10,000-meter radius in a short time, reaching the ears of everyone within that range. That Martial Emperor powerhouse must have done this on purpose. Duan Ling Tian was certain of this point. As for the purpose, it was nothing more than to make it difficult for the person who obtained the treasure. Boom, 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 boom. Unbeknownst to him, the remaining dozens of earthy yellow puppets had caught up, surrounding Duan Ling Tian, their stone fists tearing through the air and smashing towards him. Humph! Duan Ling Tian's expression turned cold. His quasi-emperor-grade spirit sword flickered, and he unleashed the 9-dragon-inch radiance flash and sword-drawing art, instantly destroying a small portion of the puppets. Kill. As killing intent rose in Duan Ling Tian's eyes, all the remaining puppets, without exception, died by his hand. When all the puppets had fallen, Duan Ling Tian raised an eyebrow, as if sensing something. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. 3 figures rushed over from 3 directions, arriving near Duan Ling Tian in a flash. They all stopped, revealing their true appearances. These were 3 young men. After exchanging glances, their gazes fell upon Duan Ling Tian, 7th level Emperor Realm Grand Earth, Profound Truth fragment. 3 pairs of eyes shot out 3 scorching and greedy gazes, converging on Duan Ling Tian. The scattered stone fragments of the puppets were completely ignored by them. As for the blue-clothed youth's corpse, completely buried under the stone fragments, they didn't even notice it. Hand over the Profound Truth fragment you obtained. Otherwise, die. Among the 3 young men, the one with a cold and stern expression glanced indifferently at Duan Ling Tian and said coolly. The other 2 young men, although they said nothing, were also glaring at the fragment shimmering with earthy yellow true essence in Duan Ling Tian's hand. They knew that it was the 7th level Emperor Realm Grand Earth Profound Truth fragment. Just now, the voice of the Martial Emperor powerhouse had come from afar, reaching their ears. They had rushed over immediately, following the sound. None of them came in with me. Duan Ling Tian scanned the 3 young men who had him surrounded. He immediately realized that none of them had entered through entrance number 2 with him. Which entrance did you come in through? Duan Ling Tian's eyes flashed, and he asked directly. No. 1. The young man with the perpetually cold and stern expression said, "Entrance number 1. Duan Lingtian suddenly understood. Then he asked, "Are you also from the northern desert region?" "You're also from the northern desert region?" Hearing Duan Lingtian's words, another young man raised an eyebrow and asked in a condescending, questioning tone, his words far from polite. Duan Lingtian, however, couldn't be bothered to pay attention to the other party's tone. Now, he had confirmed the other party's origin from their words. "You all want this profound truth fragment?" Duan Lingtian weighed the fragment in his hand and asked in a calm tone. "Nonsense!" The young man who had just questioned Duan Lingtian shouted, as if it were a matter of course. "But there are 3 of you. To whom should I give this profound truth fragment?" Duan Lingtian glanced indifferently at the 3 of them, asking with interest. "No matter who you give it to, you must first hand it over." The cold-faced young man's words were filled with an undeniable tone. "Then who should I give it to?" Duan Lingtian asked again. "Give it to me," the young man who had questioned Duan Lingtian said. "I have no objections." The young man who had been silent all this time also said, "The minority obeys the majority." The first young man looked at the cold-faced young man and said with a smile, "Don't think I don't know you're all disciples of the Cloud Evasion sect. The Cloud Evasion movement technique you used when you arrived earlier has already exposed your identities," the cold-faced young man said disdainfully. "In that case, are you from the Northern Underworld sect?" The 2 young men who had been echoing each other earlier simultaneously looked at the cold-faced young man and asked in a deep voice. "That's right." The latter nodded. "When our Cloud Evasion sect and Impermanency sect people came in, your Northern Underworld sect people were nowhere to be seen. I really didn't expect you to arrive in time." The Cloud Evasion sect disciple, who had been impolite with his words, sneered. "Cloud Evasion sect, Impermanent sect, Northern Underworld sect." After hearing the conversation between the 2 young men in front of him, Duan Lingtian's pupils couldn't help but contract. Before leaving the 5 Elements sect, he had never heard of these 3 sects, but after leaving the 5 Elements sect, during the month he traveled towards the entrance of the Martial Emperor's hidden treasury in the southwestern direction of the northern desert. He had learned a lot about the northern desert region from Huang Danyu and Shen Wei. In the northern desert region, apart from the eastern, southern, and western areas where several third-rate forces reigned supreme, in the central area of the northern desert region and the region north of the northern desert, there were 3 powerful second-rate forces, 3 sects that had been passed down for thousands of years. Cloud Evasion sect in the central area of the northern desert, Northern Underworld sect in the region north of the northern desert. Besides these 2 sects, there was also a sect located at the border between the central area of the northern desert and the region north of the northern desert, the Impermanent sect. Are they disciples of the Cloud Evasion sect and the Northern Underworld sect? Duan Lingtian took a deep breath, feeling a little enlightened in his heart. No wonder their strengths are all so powerful. So they are young powerhouses from second-rate forces. Senior Brother Shu, why waste so much time talking to him? Let's kill him first, then seize the profound truth fragment from that kid's hand. Another Cloud Evasion sect disciple suggested. Good. The Cloud Evasion sect disciple, known as Senior Brother Shu, heard this, his eyes lit up, and he immediately flew out, attacking the cold-faced Northern Underworld sect disciple. The other Cloud Evasion sect disciple followed closely. Whoosh! Buzz! One of them used a sword and the other used a saber. They attacked with full force from the start, flanking and attacking the Northern Underworld sect disciple who stood still in the distance, seemingly stunned. Whoosh! Whoosh! Above their heads, more than 550 ancient horned dragon phantoms appeared, showcasing their full capabilities. Both of them were first-level void transformation martial artists. Their full true essence burst forth comparable to the strength of 200 ancient horned dragons. They both used second-grade spirit weapons, which could increase their power by 78%, on top of their true essence, close to 150 ancient horned dragons' strength. Furthermore, they had both comprehended the first-level void transformation concept. In that case, the blue-clothed youth who was the mantis stalking the cicada, trying to seize the exquisite box containing this 7th-level Emperor Realm Grand Earth profound truth fragment earlier, was very likely also from the Cloud Evasion sect, Northern Underworld sect, or Impermanent sect. Duan Lingtian, who stood to the side, temporarily ignored by the 2 Cloud Evasion sect disciples and 1 Northern Underworld sect disciple, couldn't help but recall the blue-clothed youth he had killed with a single sword earlier. The other party was also a first-level void transformation martial artist, had comprehended the first-level void transformation concept, and had not entered with him through entrance number 2. Clang, 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 clang! Just then, A series of clashing metal sounds came from his ears, followed by gusts of strong wind which brought Duanling Tian back to his senses completely. The Northern Underworld sect disciple, facing the pincer attack of the two Cloud Evasion sect disciples, maintained an unchanging expression. With a pair of iron fists, he effortlessly blocked their attacks one by one. Of course, the Northern Underworld sect disciple did not fight the two Cloud Evasion sect disciples with bare fists. He used the second-grade spirit weapon gauntlets he wore, easily clashing head-on with their spirit saber and spirit sword. Facing the scene before him, Duanling Tian's expression remained unchanged, seemingly not surprised at all. Whoosh! Above the Northern Underworld sect disciple's head, the number of ancient horned dragon phantoms surged again, rising to over 830, baring their fangs and claws, and charging fiercely towards the two Cloud Evasion sect disciples. Second-level void transformation cultivation, comprehending the second-level void transformation concept. I wonder if this Northern Underworld sect disciple is the number one among the current generation of young people in the Northern Underworld sect, Duanling Tian murmured. If not, how strong would the number one among the current generation of young people in the Northern Underworld sect be? The North Deep Sect disciple didn't use his full strength at first, merely relying on power comparable to the two Izumo sect disciples to contend with them. Seeing this, the two Izumo sect disciples quickened their attack speed. Just as the two drew closer to the North Deep Sect disciple, the North Deep Sect disciple, having successfully lured the enemy in deep, revealed a bone-chilling coldness on his already stern face. In an instant, he unleashed his full power, the strength of over 830 ancient horned dragons bursting forth. From his iron fist, stirring up gusts of wind and explosive sounds, striking one of the Izumo sect disciples like a falling meteor. His punch was like a collapsing mountain, shaking the heavens and earth. Boom! A loud bang echoed as the North Deep Sect disciple's punch sent the Izumo sect disciple's spirit saber flying, and his iron fist, now like a giant hammer, continued to smash down towards the Izumo sect disciple's head. Bang! A deafening sound reverberated as the Izumo sect disciple's head was smashed open like a watermelon, red and white matter splattering everywhere, and his headless body crashed to the ground. You actually hid your strength? The other Izumo sect disciple, the one who had always spoken with hostility and used a sword, instantly changed his expression when he saw his fellow disciple's head explode from the sudden burst of power from the North Deep Sect disciple. Immediately after, without any hesitation, he turned and fled. What a joke! His full strength was only a little over 550 ancient horned dragons, while the opponent possessed the strength of 830 ancient horned dragons. There was no way he could defeat him. However, at this moment, he only thought of fleeing, but didn't. Consider if, with his strength, he could escape under the nose of this North Deep Sect disciple. The Izumo sect disciple had only fled a dozen meters when he was caught by the North Deep Sect disciple, and in his panic, his head was smashed, following in the footsteps of his fellow disciple. In a blink of an eye, having killed two Izumo sect disciples, the North Deep Sect disciple's expression remained unchanged. After collecting their spatial rings, his gaze finally fell upon Duanling Tian. Kid, you're very smart. The stern-faced North Deep Sect disciple looked at Duanling Tian and said indifferently, Fortunately, you didn't run. Otherwise, you would have died even sooner than them. But now it's time for you to join them. As he spoke, the North Deep Sect disciple's eyes, fixed on Duanling Tian, revealed a chilling killing intent. Killing intent surged skyward from his body. If I give you this profound fragment, will you still kill me? Duanling Tian's eyes narrowed, a subtle glint flashing imperceptibly as he asked with interest. Of course, the North Deep Sect disciple said, as a matter of course, if you live, and the news of me obtaining this 7th level royal grade earth profound fragment spreads, wouldn't I become a target for all? Only dead men tell no tales. No sooner had he spoken than the heavens above the North Deep Sect disciple's head trembled, and the phantom images of 830 ancient horned dragons became even more solid, ready to charge out at any moment. Thank you for reminding me. Duanling Tian's narrowed eyes suddenly opened, a brilliant smile appearing on his face as his gaze fell upon the North Deep Sect disciple. What do you mean? The North Deep Sect disciple felt a chill in his heart when he saw Duanling Tian's smile and couldn't help but ask, in a deep voice, Only dead men tell no tales. Duanling Tian repeated the North Deep Sect disciple's words, and almost as soon as he finished speaking, his figure moved, shooting out rapidly, sweeping like a storm. Duanling Tian transformed into a hurricane, sweeping towards the North Deep Sect disciple with formidable momentum. A yellowish-brown power surged around Duanling Tian, accompanied by streaks of purple lightning and bolts, entwined with vast azure gales, extending all the way to the quasi-royal Great Spirit sword in his hand. The sound of a sword hum rose, and an incomparably sharp aura, as if capable of tearing everything apart, was added to the quasi-royal Great Spirit sword. Duan. Ling Tian went all out from the start, holding nothing back. Whoosh! As Duan Ling Tian's figure darted out, the quasi-royal Great Spirit sword in his hand trembled, and above his head, the power of heaven and earth surged, coalescing into a phenomenon. 1,000 phantom images of ancient horned dragons then charged. Out, clawing and roaring as they pounced towards the North Deep Sect disciple. The North Deep Sect disciple only felt a flash before his eyes, and the purple figure was already not far in front of him. The 1,000 phantom images of ancient horned dragons above the void caused an inexplicable shock to rise from the depths of his heart. 1,000 ancient horned dragons? The North Deep Sect disciple was greatly alarmed. He never expected that this purple-clad youth, who appeared to be only around 25 years old, would possess such formidable strength. Those two Izumo sect disciples earlier had clearly never seen the purple-clad youth before this. Furthermore, the Izumo sect disciples said they came in with impermanence sect disciples. If the purple-clad youth were an impermanence sect disciple, even if they didn't know him personally, they would surely recognize him. Therefore, the purple-clad youth was neither a Izumo sect disciple nor a impermanence sect disciple. And since he was a North Deep Sect disciple, he could almost certainly conclude that the purple-clad youth in front of him was also not from their North Deep Sect. Earlier, in his words, he revealed that he is also from Northern Desert. In the Northern Desert, the strongest are the 3 second-rate forces, namely our North Deep Sect, and also the Izumo sect and Impermanence sect. In that instant, thoughts rapidly spun in the North Deep Sect disciple's mind. Could he be from a third-rate force? This thought suddenly popped into the North Deep Sect disciple's mind, and for a moment an incredulous look of surprise appeared on his face. When did such a powerful young expert appear among the third-rate forces? Whoosh! The sound of a sword hum rose, startling the North Deep Sect disciple back to his senses, and he hastily punched out, meeting the fleeting, swift sword light. A bit interesting, seeing that the North Deep Sect disciple dared to confront the sharp edge of the quasi-royal Great Spirit sword in his hand. Duan Ling Tian's lips curled into a cold smile. The sword, which was originally going to dodge the opponent's fist, suddenly trembled. Whoosh! The sword light on the quasi-royal Great Spirit sword flared, then met the iron fist thrown by the North Deep Sect disciple, directly piercing through. It! The sword light swept out with destructive force, mercilessly pouring into the North Deep Sect disciple's fist. Seeing this, the North Deep Sect disciple suddenly roared, and the power in his fist surged, the strength of over 830 ancient horned dragons gushing out as he gave his all, holding nothing back. Boom! A loud bang echoed. It was the power contained in Duan Ling Tian's sword light colliding with the power in the North Deep Sect disciple's fist, momentarily locked in a stalemate. In that instant, centered on the clash of their powers, a vast wave of energy swept out, spreading like ripples. Boom, 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 boom. A series of ear-splitting explosions continuously rang out, simultaneously stirring up gusts of raging winds that blew in all directions, filling the entire cave with dust. Crack, 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 crack. A series of crisp sounds rang out, revealing horrifying cracks appearing on the ground beneath the North Deep Sect disciples' feet. The cracks continuously spread and extended, forming a giant spiderweb. In contrast, not a single crack appeared beneath Duan Ling Tian's feet. From this, it could be seen that the current clash had not put any pressure on Duan Ling Tian. Boom! The next moment, the sword light in Duan Ling Tian's hand pointed, and his power was completely unleashed. The strength of 1,000 ancient horned dragons utterly crushed the North Deep Sect disciple's strength of over 830 ancient horned dragons, dissipating the power in his fist. And that wasn't all. The quasi-royal grade spirit sword thrust out from Duan Ling Tian's hand, piercing through the second-grade spirit weapon gauntlet on the North Deep Sect disciple's fist in one go, then mercilessly plunged into his arm, violently twisting and shattering his entire arm. A muffled groan, mixed with a hint of pain, came from the North Deep Sect disciple's mouth. Immediately after, he flew backward, crashing heavily to the ground, looking utterly disheveled. In contrast, Duan Ling Tian stood there, sword in hand, looking coldly at the North Deep Sect disciple, like an invincible god of war. He actually has some backbone. A hint of surprise flashed in Duan Ling Tian's eyes. His previous sword strike had followed the North Deep Sect disciple's fist, penetrating his entire arm and completely shattering and crippling it. The pain experienced during this process was far greater than simply having an arm severed directly. Yet, this North Deep Sect disciple only let out a muffled groan from beginning to end. And after being thrown back, he recovered his breath in a short time, which was astonishing. Immediately after, the North Deep Sect disciple's actions caused Duan Lingtian's pupils to involuntarily constrict. Buzz! The North Deep Sect disciple raised his left hand, forming a palm saber. His elemental energy bloomed, transforming into a white saber light, which he swung at his already unrecoverable mangled arm, resolutely severing it. With another muffled groan, the North Deep Sect disciple used his elemental energy to stop the bleeding and simultaneously took a healing pill. His extremely pale face then regained some color. To be so ruthless to himself, this person is terrifying. Seeing this scene, the cold light in Duan Lingtian's eyes grew even more intense, and a surging, uncontrollable killing intent rose in his heart. Someone who could be so ruthless to himself would be even more so to others, although, deep down, Duan Lingtian still admired the North Deep Sect disciple before him. But he showed no mercy. Just as the other party said, only dead men tell no tales. What exactly is the sword in your hand? Even a first-grade spirit sword shouldn't be able to destroy my gauntlet. The North Deep Sect disciple took a deep breath, staring at Duan Lingtian with eyes full of apprehension. Good eyesight, Duan Lingtian said indifferently. How can the sword in my hand be compared to a mere first-grade spirit sword, let alone your paltry second-grade spirit weapon gauntlet? Even a first-grade spirit weapon. If I wish, I can still destroy it. Quasi-royal grade spirit weapons break the shackles of ordinary spirit weapons. Besides possessing a one-fold amplification, power, they also have the powerful characteristic of being indestructible. The refining technique for quasi-royal grade spirit weapons is not the most difficult. The most challenging aspect is the materials. Many of the materials used to refine a quasi-emperor grade spirit weapon are difficult for even a first-grade artificer's artificer fire to refine. It is precisely for this reason that a quasi-emperor grade spirit weapon possesses the characteristic of being able to destroy ordinary spirit weapons, including first-grade spirit weapons. It can even destroy first-grade spirit weapons. Hearing Duan Lingtian's words, the Beiming sect disciple's pupils couldn't help but constrict, a look of shock appearing on his face as he asked in a deep voice, "Who exactly are you?" "No one of importance," Duan Lingtian said. Indifferently, and at the same time, the quasi-emperor grade spirit sword in his hand slowly rose, ready to strike a killing blow at the Beiming sect disciple. "I am a disciple of the Beiming sect. If you dare to kill me, the Beiming sect will definitely not let you off." The Beiming sect disciple threatened in a deep voice. Facing the faint killing intent in the eyes of the purple-clad young man before him, he did not flee, because he knew he couldn't. The other party's strength far surpassed his. "There's no third living person here. Do you think anyone will know I killed you if you die here?" Hearing the Beiming sect disciple's words, Duan Lingtian couldn't help but laugh, then looked at him as if he were an idiot. Whoosh! Immediately after, before the other party could react, Duan Lingtian directly drew his sword and killed him. After killing this Beiming sect disciple, Duan Lingtian put away his spatial ring and then took the fragments of earth concept from the hundreds of puppets. After the hundreds of fragments of earth concept were put into Duan Lingtian's spatial ring, Duan Lingtian transformed into a gust of wind and disappeared into the huge cave, which was as spacious as a training ground. For a time, the vast cave was left with only some scattered rubble and 3 shocking corpses. 7th level Emperor Realm Earth concept fragments? Not bad. As Duan Lingtian moved swiftly, he weighed the concept fragment, which shimmered with an earthy yellow energy, in his hand, murmuring to himself. Adding the 3rd level Emperor Realm Wind concept fragment, 3rd level Emperor Realm Thunder concept fragment, and 3rd level Emperor Realm Sword concept fragment, I have all the concept fragments I need are complete. The most pressing matter now is to find a concept fragment that I don't need and hand it over to the sect. Duan Lingtian put away the concept fragment that shimmered with an earthy yellow energy, his eyes gleaming as he searched along the way. On the way, he also encountered some young powerhouses from other forces. Besides the young disciples, from other forces who entered with him through entrance number 2, he also met many new faces. These people should be the disciples of second-rate forces who entered through entrance number 1. Along the way, Duan Lingtian witnessed many fights, whether it was to compete for second-grade spirit weapons, first-grade spirit weapons, or concept fragments above the 7th level. The battles were fierce, and young powerhouses occasionally fell. However, Duan Lingtian did not intervene. He had no interest in either second-grade spirit weapons or first-grade spirit weapons. As for concept fragments, he only lacked a 9th level Earth concept fragment now, but he hadn't encountered one along the way, and he wasn't interested in the others. As he passed through a vast cave, Duanling Tian seemed to sense something and suddenly stopped. Buzz! Almost at the same time, the sound of a blade entered Duanling Tian's ears. Duanling Tian looked over at the sound and saw a burly young man with a spirit blade in his hand easily kill another young man. After the burly young man, successfully, struck with his blade, he looked around at the two young men standing not far away, their faces somewhat grim, and said disdainfully, "Now, do you two still covet the 9th level Earth concept fragment in my hand?" The two young men looked at each other upon hearing this, and for a moment neither dared to think of attacking the burly young man again. 9th level Earth concept fragment? Duanling Tian's eyes lit up. He was just wondering when he would encounter a 9th level Earth concept fragment, and he didn't expect to encounter one so quickly. Immediately, Duanling Tian's spiritual energy extended out, probing the burly young man's cultivation. Void prying stage. 3rd level? After sensing the other party's cultivation, Duanling Tian's pupils constricted and a look of horror appeared on his face. The previous Beiming sect disciple with a cultivation of void prying stage 2nd level had already surprised him. Now he had encountered an even stronger existence, a young powerhouse at the void prying stage 3rd level. At the same time, Duanling Tian began to carefully observe the burly young man. The burly young man wore green clothes, had an ordinary appearance, thick eyebrows, and large eyes. Although he seemed rough and unrefined, his large eyes shimmered with incredibly wise light. Clearly, he was not as simple as he appeared on the surface. Void prying stage. 3rd level. When all his power is unleashed, it's comparable to the strength of 400 ancient horned dragons. The spirit blade in his hand is a 2nd grade spirit blade, and although its amplification is not as good as the spirit weapons I personally refined, it's not low either, at least capable of amplifying 78% of his power. After Duanling Tian sensed the other party's cultivation, he began to ponder, amplifying 78% of power on the basis of 400 ancient horned dragons' strength is equivalent to more than 310 ancient horned dragons' strength. In other words, without using concept, he can unleash the strength of more than 710 ancient horned dragons. As long as he has comprehended void prying concept above the 2nd level, in terms of strength, I am not his match. At this thought, Duanling Tian gasped. When he exerted his full strength, the power he could unleash with the quasi-emperor grade spirit sword in his hand was comparable to the strength of 1,000 ancient horned dragons. If the other party had comprehended 2nd level void prying concept, he could unleash the strength of 1,010 ancient horned dragons when exerting his full strength. If it were just like this, Duanling Tian wouldn't fear him and could fight him. But if the other party had comprehended 3rd level void prying concept, or even a higher level of void prying concept, Duanling Tian admitted that he was far from being his opponent. After all, the other party was a void prying stage 3rd level martial artist, and all this was not impossible. However, to have Duanling Tian give up the 9th level Earth concept fragment just like that, he was a bit reluctant. If you have a 9th level blade concept fragment in your hands, I would be very happy to exchange the 9th level Earth concept fragment I just obtained with you. If not, scram. Just then, the burly young man's voice once again entered Duanling Tian's ears, instantly making Duanling Tian's eyes light up. 9th level blade concept fragment? He just happened to have one in his hand. It was precisely what he won by gambling with the sun, moon sect leader before entering the Martial Emperor's secret treasure. Whoosh! Whoosh! The two young men standing nearby, who were originally anxious, breathed a sigh of relief upon hearing the burly young man's words, and without delay, they flashed away, disappearing into the cave in a blink of an eye. Immediately, only Duanling Tian and the burly young man remained in the entire cave. What? You also want to snatch the 9th level Earth concept fragment from my hand? Upon discovering Duanling Tian's presence, the burly young man raised an eyebrow and said indifferently, "Don't say I didn't warn you. Sometimes a wrong decision can very likely cost you your life." Hearing the burly young man's words, Duanling Tian couldn't help but chuckle inwardly. This person did not seem like someone with a violent temperament. He had the demeanor of, I will not offend others unless they offend me. At the same time, Duanling Tian felt relieved. You just said you can exchange a 9th level blade concept fragment for the 9th level Earth concept fragment. In your hand, Duanling Tian narrowed his eyes and asked directly. That's right. The burly young man nodded, then as if remembering something, his eyes lit up. Brother, you say that. Could it be that you have a 9th level blade concept fragment in your hand? By the end of his sentence, the burly young man's eyes were filled with fervent anticipation. Whoosh! As Duanling Tian raised his hand, a fragment appeared in his hand. It was precisely the 9th level blade concept fragment he had won from the Sun Moon sect leader not long ago. 9th level blade concept fragment. Seeing the fragment, Duanling Tian took out. The burly young man's face showed an excited smile, and at the same time, he took out a deep, earthy yellow fragment, a 9th level earth concept fragment. Little brother, let's exchange. As if afraid Duanling Tian would go back on his word, the burly young man raised his hand and threw the 9th level earth concept fragment to Ling Tian, seemingly not at all worried that Duanling Tian would take his concept fragment and not honor the agreement. Duanling Tian didn't expect the burly young man to be so straightforward, and he couldn't help but feel a good impression. As he took the 9th level earth concept fragment, he threw the blade concept fragment in his hand to the other party. The burly young man reached out and caught it, carefully putting it into his spatial ring as if it were a treasure. Then he looked at Duanling Tian again, grinning. My name is Peng Bao, and I am a disciple of the Wuchang sect. May I know your name, brother? The Wuchang sect, one of the 3 major second-rate forces in the northern desert. Duan. Ling Tian, who already had a good impression of Peng Bao, responded with a smile. Duanling Tian, a disciple of the 5-element sect. 5-element sect? Peng Bao's eyes flashed upon hearing this, and he asked somewhat surprised, Is it the 5-element sect in the region south of the northern desert? Yes. Duanling Tian nodded. I've heard my master mention your 5-element sect before. It is said that your 5-element sect once produced a martial artist of extraordinary talent who had the potential to become a martial emperor. It's just a pity that he was injured more than 20 years ago and has been in decline ever since, Peng Bao said. Hearing Peng Bao's words, Duanling Tian was startled and naturally guessed that the person Peng Bao was referring to was the 5-element sect's Wood Peak master, Qi Yu. However, he never expected that Qi Yu's reputation was so great that even people from second-rate forces in the northern desert knew about him. That is our 5-element sect's Wood Peak master, Duanling Tian said with a smile. Peng Bao nodded, then continued, Brother Ling Tian, it was a pleasure meeting you today. If I have the chance in the future, I will definitely find you for a good drink or two. Also, this martial emperor's secret treasure is full of dangers, so unless you are absolutely confident, it's best not to actively snatch treasures from others. Duanling Tian felt a warmth in his heart upon hearing Peng Bao's reminder. His interaction with Peng Bao was nothing more than an equal exchange, and the fact that Peng Bao would go to such lengths showed that he was a friend worth having. Duanling Tian smiled and nodded. I'll be going then. Be careful. Peng Bao nodded at Duanling Tian, greeted him, and then flew off. After Peng Bao left, Duanling Tian also departed. However, the direction he took was not the same as Peng Bao's. This cave had 7 exits, leading to different places, and he simply chose one different from Peng Bao's, inside one of the myriad caves within the Martial Emperor's treasure trove. Boom! 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 Inside a cave, overgrown with vegetation and extremely damp, a series of powerful collisions and air explosions echoed continuously, without stopping for half a day. 2 figures constantly crisscrossed, sometimes clashing, sometimes separating, appearing evenly matched for a while. At some point, the ground beneath their feet developed numerous hideous cracks, which intertwined densely, spreading out like a giant spiderweb. Is it meaningful to continue like this? How about I give you a 7th level concept fragment, and you let me have the 2nd spirit fruit, one of the figures said as he retreated. You give it to me, and I'll give you an 8th level concept fragment. The other figure scoffed and continued to charge at his opponent, the power of his origin energy and concept merging and surging, sweeping towards the other with fierce momentum. Then there's nothing more to say. The former snorted coldly, shot forward, and once again engaged in battle with the latter. The 2 continued to fight here. Bursts of air explosions swept out from their clashes, stirring up vast gusts of wind that made a plant within the damp cave sway precariously. This plant was very peculiar. Its entire body was not the usual green of ordinary plants, but 3 other colors. Its slightly exposed roots were golden. Its branches were purple. Its leaves were red. Most importantly, 3 spirit fruits of different colors, gold, purple, and red, hung from this plant. If Duanling Tian were here and saw this plant, he would be greatly surprised. A single plant growing 3 spirit fruits of different colors was extremely bizarre. Most importantly, these 3 spirit fruits were not of the same type. In other words, a martial artist could consume all 3 spirit fruits simultaneously to boost their cultivation, and their medicinal effects would not diminish. Currently, the 2 young powerhouses fighting in the cave were clashing precisely because they had discovered these 3 spirit fruits at the same time. The deep colors of these 3 spirit fruits indicated that they had just matured. Now was the best time to consume them. Clang! Clang! Clang, clang, clang. The two young men constantly crisscrossed, their spirit weapons clashing together at times, emitting ear-piercing sounds that shook the heart. Above their heads in the void, more than 550 ancient. Horned dragon phantoms appeared for each of them. Both were first-level void-prying stage martial artists who had comprehended first-level void transformation concept. Their spirit weapons were Grade 2 spirit weapons, providing a 78% amplification. The reason the two were fighting was precisely because of those 3 spirit fruits. If there had only been 2 spirit fruits, knowing that their opponent's strength was comparable to their own, they would have stopped long ago, each taking one, and everyone would have been happy. But the problem was that there were 3 spirit fruits in total. Now, they were determined to decide the ownership of the spirit fruits with their strength. The losing party would undoubtedly die, and the winning party would get all 3 spirit fruits. However, they had fought for a long time and still couldn't determine a winner. I think we should continue like this. If someone else comes to share the spoils, then no one will benefit. One of the young men flew backward and said in a deep voice, "All right, but out of the 3 spirit fruits I must have 2. The other young man nodded in agreement, but stated a condition that the other found difficult to accept. "Since you're so greedy, I'll continue." The former's face darkened, and after a cold snort, he once again engaged in battle with his opponent. Time quietly passed by. Outside the cave, a white figure flew over, stopping at one of the cave's entrances, his gaze falling upon the 2 individuals fighting inside. They're fighting here. It must be over some benefit. The owner of the white figure was a young man in white, who muttered as he watched the 2 dueling inside the cave. "Little brat, Zishang, you're in luck." Just then, a sinister, hoarse, and ancient voice suddenly echoed deep within the white-clad young man's mind, causing him to momentarily freeze. The young man in white was Zishang, who had previously fallen from the side of the high platform, below the entrance of the Martial Emperor's secret realm. He was supposed to have fallen into the bottomless abyss and died, but he was still alive and well. Not only that, he had also entered the true Martial Emperor's treasure. "Trove, old ghost, what have you found?" Hearing the ghost fire in his mind, Zishang's eyes lit up. "Look inside that cave. That 3-colored plant, do you see it?" Ghostfire's voice echoed in Zishang's mind. Upon hearing this, Zishang immediately focused his gaze into the cave, and with just one glance, he saw the 3-colored plant, with the 3 different colored fruits hanging from it, particularly conspicuous. Spirit fruits? Zishang's eyes flashed and his breathing quickened. "Although I don't know what kind of spirit fruits they are, my soul power can sense that they are not the same type of spirit fruit, and their medicinal power is between void prying. Stage-exclusive spirit fruits and void transformation. Stage-exclusive spirit fruits." Ghostfire's voice continued to resonate in Zishang's mind. "What do you mean?" Zishang looked puzzled upon hearing Ghostfire's words. "What I mean is, those 3 spirit fruits can be consumed by both void-prying stage martial artists and void transformation stage martial artists. If consumed by void-prying stage martial artists, the effect will be even greater," Ghostfire explained. "Spirit. Fruits that can be consumed by both void-prying stage and void transformation stage martial artists?" Zishang's eyes gleamed and his already quickened breathing accelerated even further, taking a long time to calm down. Spirit fruits that even void transformation stage martial artists could consume naturally possessed potent medicinal power. He was only a 7th-level void-prying stage martial artist. Once he consumed these 3 spirit fruits, wouldn't his strength advance by leaps and bounds? The 2 concepts he had comprehended were already void transformation concepts, so he didn't have to worry about not being able to step into the void transformation stage after quickly breaking through to the 9th-level void prying stage. "These 3 spirit fruits are mine, Zishang's." Zishang's eyes flashed, and he glanced disdainfully at the 2 still fighting. He then flew into the cave, not bothering to hide his presence from the 2 combatants. "Who goes there?" As soon as Zishang appeared, he was discovered by the 2 young men who were fighting. Immediately they stopped, united against the newcomer, staring intently at Zishang. "Those 3 spirit fruits, I, Zishang, will take them." Zishang glanced at the 2 young men and said indifferently, pausing here, but his tone carried an undeniable certainty. Upon hearing Zishang's words, the 2 young men's expressions changed drastically, and they angrily retorted, "Dream on!" At this moment, Zishang, who had paused, had a cold glint in his eyes, and his voice became several shades colder. "As for the 2 of you, neither of you will live. Neither of you will live." It must be said that Zishang's words were overbearing and, at the same time, completely enraged the 2 young men. "You're asking for death." One of the young men's eyes blazed with killing intent, his voice cold. as if emanating from a frigid ice cave. Whoever kills this brat gets 2 spirit fruits. How about it? The other young man took a deep breath and asked the former. All right. The former did not refuse, nodding fiercely. Instantly, the 2 young men's gazes towards Zishang became more ferocious and violent, as if they wanted to devour him. Kill! The next moment, the 2 attacked in unison with unspoken understanding, charging straight at Zishang. Their origin energy and concept merged, transforming into vast and surging power which, combined with their spirit weapons, mercilessly struck at Zishang. Above their heads in the void, the power of heaven and earth surged and rolled, finally converging into more than 550 ancient horned dragon phantoms for each of them. A total of more than 1,100 ancient. Horned dragon phantoms, baring their fangs and brandishing their claws, lunged at Zishang, an ant trying to stop a chariot. Facing the 2 first-level void transformation stage martial artists, Zishang, a 7th-level void prying stage martial artist, showed no fear. A sneer played on his lips, and a 7-foot-long spear appeared out of thin air in his hand. Seeing the 2 young men charge at him without holding back, Zishang's eyes flashed with cold light. He shook the long spear in his hand, and it suddenly shot out with fierce momentum. Whoosh! Where the long spear pointed, flames entwined the shaft, transforming into a fire dragon that continuously moved around the spear. Beside the fire dragon, a wisp of green gale quickly appeared, piercing into the fire dragon's body. Whoosh! Instantly, with the wind fueling the fire dragon surged upwards. At the same time, as Zishang's 7-foot-long spear shot out like lightning, 878 ancient horned dragon phantoms swept out above his head, in the void. A 7th-level void prying stage martial artist, with all his origin energy unleashed, was comparable to the power of 100 ancient horned dragons. After being amplified by a Grade 2 spirit spear, it could increase to the power of 178 ancient horned dragons. Adding to that, the 4th-level advanced wind concept comparable to the power of 400 ancient horned dragons, and the 1st-level advanced wind concept comparable to the power of 200 ancient horned dragons, which was further boosted by the fire fueled by wind, to an additional 100 ancient horned dragons of power. Currently, Zishang, with full effort, could unleash the power of 878 ancient horned dragons. Not good. Seeing the 878 ancient horned dragon phantoms in the void, the 2 individuals who were charging at Zishang's faces changed drastically. Unfortunately, by the time the 2 young men reacted, it was already too late. They never expected that the white-robed young man who looked even younger than them would possess such formidable strength, completely overwhelming them. Swish! Swish! Zishang flicked the 7-foot spear in his hand, and 2 swift spear gleams shot out, like 2 dragons of wind and fire, easily killing the 2 overconfident young men. In a single encounter, he killed 2 void transformation stage 1st-level martial artists. Such a feat, occurring to a void prying stage 7th-level martial artist, would undoubtedly astonish and even petrify a 3rd person if they were present, because in the eyes of ordinary people, this was almost impossible. A void prying stage, 7th-level martial artist killing 2 void transformation stage. 1st-level martial artists in one encounter. Anyone who heard of such a thing would only consider it a wild fantasy, a huge joke. 2 pieces of trash. Putting the 7-foot spear back into his spatial ring, Zishang coldly and disdainfully glanced at the corpses of the 2 young men. Void transformation stage martial artists? Nothing more than that. At this moment, Zishang seemed to have completely forgotten. Not long ago, he was forced by a void transformation stage martial artist to abandon the demon sealing tablet fragment and flee into the bottomless abyss to save his life. Otherwise, he would already be a corpse. The 3 spirit fruits, they're all mine, Zishang's. Zishang walked to the 3-colored plant at the deepest part of the damp cave, and with a raise of his hand, plucked the 3 spirit fruits of different colors. He held them in his hand, examining them carefully. In my judgment, any one of these 3 spirit fruits is enough to help you break through from void, prying stage 7th level, to void transformation, stage 1st level in one go. At the same time, Ghostfire's voice echoed in Zishang's mind. That potent? Hearing Ghostfire's words, Zishang couldn't help but be shocked. One must know that he was currently only at void prying stage 7th level, 3 levels away from void transformation, stage 1st level. 1 spirit fruit was enough to help him break through 3 levels consecutively. In an instant, Zishang's breathing became incredibly rapid. That's natural. Any one of these 3 spirit fruits, even for a void transformation stage martial artist, as long as they are not above void transformation stage 4th level, once consumed, Their cultivation can be raised by at least 1 level, Ghostfire said as a matter of course. Good, good. Let alone consuming all 3 spirit fruits, even if I only consume one of them. Once I break through to Void Transformation Stage 1st level, my strength will surpass that Duanling Tian. Zisheng's eyes gleamed, and then he gritted his teeth and said, Duanling Tian, I will definitely kill you and take back the demon sealing tablet. By then, I, Zisheng, will soar to great heights. You're destined to be trampled under my feet. The matter of seeking revenge on Duanling Tian can wait for now. You should first find a secluded place, consume the spirit fruits, and cultivate diligently. Raising your cultivation to Void Transformation, Stage 1st level, is the right path. Ghostfire said. Right. Zisheng nodded, agreeing with Ghostfire's words, and at the same time began searching for a secluded cave nearby, preparing to consume the newly acquired spirit fruits to cultivate and improve his cultivation. Duanling Tian was naturally unaware of what was happening here. Duanling Tian didn't know that Zisheng, who should have fallen into the bottomless abyss and died, was still alive, nor did he know that Zisheng had obtained 3 treasure-like spirit fruits, and his strength could surpass his at any time. Currently, Duanling Tian was moving through various caves, trying to determine the direction, and thus ascertain the location of the palace left by the Martial Emperor in the central area of the Martial Emperor's hidden treasure. According to the Martial Emperor, the palace where he died of old age was in the central area of the Martial Emperor's hidden treasure. Emperor-level profound fragment. Duanling Tian's target was an Emperor-level profound fragment within the Martial Emperor's remains, as well as 2 other Imperial-level profound fragments. Apart from these 3 profound fragments, there were only 5 other profound fragments in the entire Martial Emperor's hidden treasure. Now he'd obtained one of them, a 7-fold Imperial-level Earth profound fragment. There were still 4, and finding them was like searching for a needle in a haystack. Now, being able to obtain one of them, in Duanling Tian's opinion, was already due to his good luck. Otherwise, he might not have even gotten one. I haven't encountered a single living 5 elements sect disciple. As Duanling Tian moved, his expression slightly darkened. Along the way, although he had encountered a few 5 elements sect disciples, all of them were corpses, without exception, and had been killed for a long time, making it impossible for him to find the killer to avenge them. Inside an incredibly spacious cave, 2 rapidly moving figures suddenly stopped. Around their bodies, countless shattered rock fragments were piled up, mixed with many red fragments, which were fire intent fragments, numbering over 100. The ground was covered with fire intent fragments, but the 2 of them did not bother to collect them. Their gazes, by prior agreement, fell on the exquisite box embedded in the center of the cave ceiling. Half of the exquisite box was embedded in the cave ceiling, clearly containing the treasures left by the Martial Emperor. The 2 young men's gazes quickly left the exquisite box. Liu Qi, I didn't expect your strength to have improved so much. It seems your Wuchang sect came prepared this time, with no small ambition. One of the young men looked at the other and said in a deep voice, Isn't your Chuyan sect the same? The Wuchang sect disciple, called Liu Qi, sneered, his eyes flashing with a fierce glint. I Xiaoping, we fought once during the 3-sect martial arts competition. That time, I lost to you. Today, I not only want to wipe away that shame, but also to kill you and claim the treasure for myself. That depends on whether you have the ability, Xiaoping responded calmly. Almost as soon as Xiaoping's words fell, Liu Qi moved, choosing to strike first, and rushed towards Xiaoping. In his hand, a soft sword as thin as a cicada's wing appeared out of thin air. Whoosh! The soft sword, imbued with a chilling aura, cut through the air, creating a series of piercing whistles. With its first move, it aimed directly at a vital point, pointing towards Xiaoping's glabella. Whoosh! Above Liu Qi's head, the power of all heaven and earth surged, and a celestial phenomenon condensed into form. Ancient horned dragon phantoms appeared above Liu Qi's head, a total of over 830 of them. Liu Qi, with a cultivation of void transformation, stage 2nd level, unleashed his full elemental energy, comparable to the power of 300 ancient horned dragons. Through the 78% amplification of the 2nd grade spirit weapon, it could be boosted to the power of over 230 ancient horned dragons. Additionally, Liu Qi had comprehended 2nd level high grade sword intent, comparable to the power of 300 ancient horned dragons. Therefore, Liu Qi's full power was comparable to the power of over 830 ancient horned dragons. A sword strike imbued with the power of over 830 ancient horned dragons. Wherever it passed, sword cries rose, air currents moved, stirring up slight sonic booms. Whoosh! The sword pointed at Xiaoping's glabella, intending to kill him with one strike. Seeing Liu Qi strike first and display such power, Xiaoping's expression became slightly solemn, but there was no trace of fear in his eyes. He stepped forward and met the attack. Buzz! In his hand, a narrow saber, also as thin as a cicada's wing, appeared. The saber gleam bloomed, emitting a series of incomparably sharp auras, meeting Liu Qi's sword. Whoosh! Above the void, the power of heaven and earth surged, and a celestial phenomenon condensed into form, transforming into ancient horned dragon phantoms. In the blink of an eye, the number of ancient horned dragon phantoms increased to over 800. Kill! Facing Xiaoping, who was coming to meet him, Liu Qi's eyes flashed with cold light. The sword gleam of his soft sword raged, meeting Xiaoping's approaching narrow saber, as if he wanted to clash head-on with Xiaoping to determine victory. However, the confidence on his face quickly froze. He clearly saw that the ancient horned dragon phantoms above Xiaoping's head instantly increased to over 930, a full 100 more than his. No! Seeing this scene, Liu Qi's face changed drastically. He never expected that. From the very beginning, Xiaoping had hidden his true strength. It turned out that Xiaoping, whose cultivation was similar to his, and whose spirit weapon was also a second-grade spirit weapon, had already comprehended third-level saber intent, completely crushing his second-level sword intent. Clang! The sound of metal clashing spread, incredibly piercing. Boom! At the same time, the two forces collided, a huge sound spread, stirring up waves of air that rippled outwards, causing gusts of wind to blow. Crack! 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 Under Liu Qi's feet, the floor shattered and countless hideous cracks appeared, spreading in all directions like a giant spiderweb. Boom! Almost at the same time, Liu Qi's sword gleam was crushed by Xiaoping's saber gleam. In a moment, Liu Qi was completely engulfed by Xiaoping's saber gleam, and his entire body was cut into two sections. Liu Qi's severed body fell to the ground, blood staining the ground, forming a small stream that slowly flowed, dazzling and striking. Liu Qi, the first Wuchang sect disciple to enter the Martial Emperor's hidden treasure, whose strength ranked among the top 5 of the 10 young disciples from Wuchang sect who entered this time. However, he still died at the hands of Xiaoping, a disciple of the Chuyun sect. To contend with me, Xiaoping, you, Liu Qi, are still a bit too green. Xiaoping sneered, took 2 steps forward, and squatted down, preparing to take the spatial ring from Liu Qi's hand. However, before he could reach out, his body stiffened. Whoosh! Without any hesitation, Xiaoping hastily turned around, looking with a wary expression at the young man who had appeared behind him at some unknown time. His face slightly darkened. Who are you? The young man ignored Xiaoping, his gaze falling on the exquisite box embedded in the center of the cave ceiling, sparkling with a fervent glow. You may leave. I don't want to kill you. Finally, the young man looked at Xiaoping, his voice cold and clear. From beginning to end, his face remained stern. Who exactly is your excellency? Xiaoping asked again. Duanqing sect, Zhang Yan. The stern-faced young man's tone was terrifyingly calm. Duanqing sect? Hearing Zhang Yan's words, Xiaoping couldn't help but be startled. After a moment of thought, he asked, You mean the third-rate force, the Duanqing sect, in the region south of the northern desert? Zhang Yan's face remained stern, and he did not answer Xiaoping, but Xiaoping confirmed it himself. And when he looked at Zhang Yan again, a mocking smile appeared on his face. A disciple of a third-rate force dares to speak so brazenly. In front of me, Xiaoping? Ridiculous. Do you know who I, Xiaoping, am? Zhang Yan still did not speak. Let me tell you. I, Xiaoping, am a disciple of the Cloud Source sect, one of the 3 major second-rate forces in the northern desert. You, a disciple of a third-rate force, an ant-like existence, dare to be arrogant in front of me, Xiaoping? At this point, a cold light flashed in Xiaoping's eyes, and he coldly shouted, Today you will surely die! As soon as his voice fell, Xiaoping wasted no more words. His figure moved, soaring towards Zhang Yan, his narrow blade transforming into a venomous snake, swiftly darting out and striking at Zhang Yan's vital points. Whoosh! Above the void, the power of heaven and earth fluctuated, and the natural phenomenon reappeared. A total of over 930 ancient horned dragon phantoms once again appeared above Xiaoping's head, bearing their fangs and claws. As they lunged towards Zhang Yan's position, their momentum like a rainbow, Xiaoping, a disciple of the Cloud Source sect. Among the 10 young disciples of the Cloud Source sect who entered the Martial Emperor's secret treasury this time, his strength ranked among the top 3. Because of this, Xiaoping had immense confidence in his own strength. In his opinion, a mere disciple of a third-rate force was nothing more than an ant in front of him. He could completely obliterate them from this world with just one move. Facing the aggressive Xiaoping, Zhang Yan's expression remained unchanged, but his eyes became completely cold. He swiftly extended both hands forward. In an instant, a pair of spirit tool gloves, crafted from an unknown material, appeared on each of Zhang Yan's hands. The moment the gloves appeared, wisps of chilling cold air emanated from them. Ice. Intent? Perceiving the cold air emanating from Zhang Yan's hands, Xiaoping's gaze sharpened, and a hint of surprise appeared on his face. Ice. Intent was considered one of the most powerful natural intents. Unless one possessed extraordinary talent and opportunities, it was almost impossible to comprehend. But when he saw only 200 ancient horned dragon phantoms appearing above Zhang Yan's head, a mocking smile couldn't help but appear on Xiaoping's face. So it's just first-level high-grade ice intent. In his opinion, first-level high-grade ice intent posed no threat to him. However, his expression quickly changed. This was because, while waves of chilling cold air emanated from Zhang Yan's hands, his elemental energy also surged, transforming into wisps of raging flames that perfectly merged with the cold air. In an instant, blue flames erupted from Zhang Yan's hands, emitting both scorching heat and icy coldness. This contradictory combination created an invisible sense of oppression. Whoosh! At the same time, beside the 200 ancient horned dragon phantoms above Zhang Yan's head, another 300 ancient horned dragon phantoms were added. 200 of these ancient horned dragon phantoms belonged to first-level high-grade. Fire intent. Fire intent was born from ice intent. Such a method was a miraculous technique from the top-tier cultivation method Zhang Yan practiced, the supreme forgetfulness art. As for the other 100 ancient horned dragon phantoms, they were triggered by Zhang Yan's cultivation at the 7th level of the Void Prying Realm. Almost simultaneously, another 78 ancient horned dragon phantoms appeared, which was the amplification power of the second-grade spirit tool gloves on Zhang Yan's hands. A total of 578 ancient horned dragon phantoms. However, this was not the end of it. Ice and fire dual heavens. As Zhang Yan spoke in a cold tone, the blue ice flames, a combination of ice and fire on his hands, suddenly surged, emitting waves of terrifying aura. In an instant, above Zhang Yan's head, beside the 578 ancient horned dragon phantoms, another 400 ancient horned dragon phantoms appeared. A total of 978 ancient horned dragon phantoms. If Pei An, the sect master of the Duanqing sect, were here and saw this scene, he would be greatly astonished, because this meant that his direct disciple, Zhang Yan, had mastered the ice and fire dual heavens to the great accomplishment. Stage, allowing the combined power of ice and fire to increase by a full twofold. Ice and fire dual heavens was a technique within the supreme forgetfulness art. A minor accomplishment could increase the combined power of ice and fire by half, while great accomplishment could increase it by a full twofold. Now, Zhang Yan had mastered the ice and fire dual heavens to the great accomplishment. Stage. How was this possible? Xiaoping's change of color was precisely because he witnessed this unbelievable scene. The 978 ancient horned dragon phantoms above the Duanqing sect disciple's head had completely surpassed the more than 930 ancient horned dragon phantoms he could unleash with his full power. At the same time, Xiaoping's narrow blade, which was aggressively lunging towards Zhang Yan, showed signs of slowing down due to his agitated state of mind. And it was at this moment that the figure, enveloped in a vast blue ice flame, instantly met him, arriving in front of Xiaoping, causing Xiaoping's expression to change drastically. Buzz! Xiaoping no longer dared to hesitate. The power in his narrow blade surged, and he thrust it directly at Zhang Yan, as if to cleave Zhang Yan in two. A cold snort escaped Zhang Yan's lips. Immediately after, Zhang Yan's hand, like a large fan, swept down with lightning. Speed, pressing against the blade of Xiaoping's narrow saber. Slap! After a slap knocked the narrow blade in Xiaoping's hand off its original trajectory, Zhang Yan's hand remained pressed against the blade. In an instant, a layer of frost covered the narrow blade. The frost surged and spread, quickly covering Xiaoping's body, causing his attempts to dodge to falter. Whoosh! At this moment, Zhang Yan's other hand, entwined with blue ice flames, shot out like lightning, resembling a large fan, and swept down towards Xiaoping's head. No! Seeing Zhang Yan's palm, entwined with blue ice flames and containing the power of 978 ancient horned dragons, descend towards his head, Xiaoping's face changed dramatically. He wanted to defend himself, but found that his body had become somewhat sluggish due to the cold air emanating from Zhang Yan's palm, and he simply didn't have time to react. Slap! Zhang Yan's palm landed on Xiaoping's head, splitting it open like a watermelon. The red and white matter that splattered out was completely frozen by a layer of ice, not a single drop touching Zhang Yan. Xiaoping's body fell to the ground, raising a cloud of dust. The narrow blade in his hand also fell to the ground, emitting a clang. Zhang Yan raised an eyebrow and casually took Xiaoping's spatial ring and second-grade spirit blade, storing them in his own spatial ring. Immediately. After, he also took Liu Qi's spatial ring and second-grade spirit sword, which had been dead for a long time, and collected the fire intent fragments scattered all over the ground. There were over 100 fire intent fragments in total. After collecting them all, a rare, faint smile appeared on Zhang Yan's lips. A good harvest. Zhang Yan raised an eyebrow, his eyes vaguely mixed with a hint of joy. This time, he was truly a mantis stalking the cicada, unaware of the oriole behind, reaping the benefits of others' struggles. Soon, Zhang Yan's gaze fell upon the exquisite box on the ceiling of the cave in the center of the grotto. He then flew up and took down the exquisite box. I wonder what's inside. With curiosity in his heart, Zhang Yan raised his hand and opened the exquisite box. A moment later, a fragment, shimmering with a deep, fiery red true essence, appeared before his eyes, causing his eyes to light up and his breathing to quicken. This isn't an intent fragment. Could it be a profound fragment? Or a fire profound fragment? Zhang Yan gasped. Almost at the same time, a familiar, yet unfamiliar voice emanated from within the box, entering Zhang Yan's ears while carrying an extremely terrifying penetrative power, spreading in all directions. Congratulations, young man. This 9th level Emperor Realm Fire Profound Fragment is yours. Soon, Zhang Yan reacted, recognizing it as the voice of the Martial Emperor Powerhouse, who had left behind the Martial Emperor's secret treasury. There's even a sound-gathering array inside this box. But that voice just now seemed to have extremely strong penetrative power. By now, it's probably spread throughout the surrounding area, right? Thinking of this, Zhang Yan's pupils contracted. Just as he reacted, Zhang Yan heard 3 swift whooshing sounds which instantly entered the cave he was in. A moment later, 3 figures appeared before him. Junior brother Liu, the owner. Of one of the figures was a young man in black. His gaze fell on Liu Qi's corpse on the ground, and his expression changed drastically. Evidently he, like Liu Qi, was a disciple of the Wuchang sect. Senior brother Xiaoping, the other. 2 young men looked at Xiaoping's corpse, their expressions changing drastically. When they looked at Zhang Yan again, their eyes were vaguely mixed with a hint of fear. After exchanging glances, the 2 seemed to reach a tacit understanding and quickly turned to flee. What a joke. The person who could kill senior brother Xiao, Ping was not someone they could deal with. Since you're here, don't leave. Zhang Yan's cold voice rang out. As he raised his hands, 2 vast blue ice flames swept out, quickly catching up to the 2 Cloud Source sect disciples, enveloping them and killing them. 2 bodies fell to the ground, making 2 soft thuds and raising a cloud of dust. Ice intent? Fire intent? The black-clothed Wuchang sect disciple's expression hardened, and a cold light flashed in his eyes as he stared at Zhang Yan. Your strength is impressive to be able to kill junior brother. Liu and the Cloud Source sect's Xiaoping. However, in front of me, you're still not good enough. As soon as the Wuchang sect disciple finished speaking, his figure shot out, darting straight at Zhang Yan like an arrow leaving a bowstring. His spirit weapon appeared in his hand, and his elemental energy and intent followed like shadows, merging into the spirit weapon. At the same time, above his head, over 930 ancient horned dragon phantoms appeared, all charging towards Zhang Yan. Zhang Yan? As the Wuchang sect disciple attacked Zhang Yan, a figure like a fire spirit silently appeared in the cave. She was a woman of breathtaking beauty, standing there as if casting all her surroundings into shadow. Her crimson robes fluttered. Without a breeze, and her graceful, slender figure stirred the imagination, giving rise to an impulse to rush forward and embrace her, to cherish her. However, the woman's appearance was so utterly silent that it didn't alarm Zhang Yan or the black-clothed Wuchang sect disciple. Second-level void transformation realm comprehended the triple void transformation intent. Zhang Yan, whose face had been somewhat solemn, couldn't help but let a mocking smile appear at the corner of his mouth after seeing the heaven and earth phenomena triggered by the Wuchang sect disciple's attack. He had originally thought that the other party, daring to utter such words just now, truly possessed strength, surpassing that of Xiaoping, the cloud evasion sect disciple he had just killed. Now it seemed the other party's strength was only comparable to Xiaoping's. Perhaps, in his impression, Xiaoping didn't possess strength equal to his own, Zhang Yan thought silently. Xiaoping, whose strength was comparable to this Wuchang sect disciple, had died in Zhang Yan's hands in a single encounter, so this Wuchang sect disciple would naturally be no exception. In just one encounter, Zhang Yan's hands surged with ice flames, directly killing him. Ice and fire fusion? Just as Zhang Yan killed the Wuchang sect disciple, collected his storage ring and spirit weapon, and was about to leave, a soft and pleasant voice suddenly reached his ears. Zhang Yan was not unfamiliar with this voice, which caused his expression to subtly change. When did she appear? An unbelievable thought arose in Zhang Yan's mind, and then he turned around to look at the woman standing not far away, like a fire spirit, Feng Tianwu. Feng Tianwu was not unfamiliar to Zhang Yan. A few months ago, during the 10 Dynasty Martial Arts tournament held at Kanglang Fortress, Feng Tianwu had displayed impressive strength. But that strength compared to his was a world apart, not worth mentioning. Zhang Yan never expected that a few months later, Feng Tianwu would possess the strength to appear silently behind him. If Feng Tianwu were to attack him, he couldn't imagine the consequences. For a moment, a thin layer of cold sweat appeared on Zhang Yan's forehead. Feng Tianwu? Zhang Yan calmly confronted Feng Tianwu. Facing this woman who admired Duanling Tian, he dared not relax in the slightest. The fact that the other party could appear silently behind him already indicated that she was no longer the same as before. Hand over the 9th level Imperial Realm Fire Profundity Fragment, and you can leave. Feng Tianwu stood there, her exquisite face calm as she looked at Zhang Yan, as if no other emotion stirred within her. She spoke slowly, directly demanding the Profundity Fragment in Zhang Yan's hand. Evidently, she too had been drawn by the highly penetrating message left by the Martial Emperor expert. If you want me to hand over the Profundity Fragment, then you'll need to prove you have the ability. Zhang Yan's eyes narrowed as he spoke coldly. If it were the Feng Tianwu of the past who said such words to him, he would have considered it a huge joke. But now he dared not think that way. Feng Tianwu's ability to appear silently behind him implicitly suggested that her current strength was at least comparable to his, and possibly even surpassed him by a few points. Whoosh! Facing Zhang Yan's provocation, Feng Tianwu's autumn eyes narrowed, her red robes fluttering, making her appear like a true fire spirit, exceptionally eye-catching. At some point, wisps of milky white true origin rose from Feng Tianwu, like milky white flames swirling around her body, gently pulsating. At this instant, above the void of her head, the power of heaven and earth surged, and the phenomena of heaven and earth rapidly coalesced. As a long whip, like a red spiritual snake, appeared in Feng Tianwu's hand, the heaven and earth phenomena changed again, with some ancient horned dragon phantoms appearing. Looking at the heaven and earth phenomena appearing above Feng Tianwu's head, Zhang Yan's stern face was slightly dazed. It wasn't that the heaven and earth phenomena were terrifying, but rather that they were too far beyond his expectations. Above Feng Tianwu's head, first 60 ancient horned dragon phantoms appeared, followed by another 42 ancient horned dragon phantoms. 4th level void prying realm, 3rd grade spirit whip, a 3rd grade spirit weapon that boosts 70% power. Soon, Zhang Yan's attention shifted to the long whip in Feng Tianwu's hand, which resembled a red spiritual snake. His eyes filled with surprise. A 3rd grade spirit weapon that boosts 70% power is considered the best of the best among many 3rd grade spirit weapons. Zhang Yan couldn't imagine which artificer could forge such a monstrous 3rd grade spirit weapon. No, that's not right. Soon, Zhang Yan came back to his senses, his eyes narrowing. How could she be merely a 4th level void prying realm martial artist? If she were only a 4th level void prying realm martial artist, she absolutely couldn't have appeared behind me without me noticing anything. Zhang Yan was certain of this point. A moment later, when Zhang Yan saw the milky white flames around Feng Tianwu's body turn fiery red, he finally got the answer and resolved the confusion in his heart. The milky white flames on Feng Tianwu's body turned fiery red, transforming into a sky full of true flames, enveloping her entire being and emanating a formidable aura. At this moment, Feng Tianwu, rising into the air with the surging flames, stood gracefully, her slender figure suspended in midair, surrounded by a sky full of flames, as if she had transformed into a true fire spirit. Whoosh! Above the void of Feng Tianwu's head, to one side of the 102 ancient horned dragon phantoms, the power of heaven and earth surged again, converging into new heaven and earth phenomena. Moments later, 200 ancient horned dragon phantoms appeared. Before Zhang Yan's eyes, 1st level high-grade fire intent. Seeing this scene, Zhang Yan's pupils constricted. Soon, Zhang Yan's pupils constricted repeatedly, eventually becoming somewhat numb. Heavens, what did he see? The heaven and earth phenomena above Feng Tianwu's head continued to climb, reaching 1,002 ancient horned dragon phantoms before the power of heaven and earth and the void disappeared, restoring the void to its original calm. 8th level high-grade fire intent. The scene before him completely shattered the sternness on Zhang Yan's face, startling him into gaping in astonishment. 8th level high-grade fire intent comparable to the power of 900 ancient horned dragons. Such an intent appearing on a 4th level void-prying realm martial artist made Zhang Yan feel as if he were dreaming. In his opinion, this was almost impossible. 4th level void-prying realm, comprehending 8th level void transformation. Intent. If he hadn't seen it with his own eyes, he would never have believed it was real. No wonder you still asked me to hand over the profundity fragment after seeing my strength. So, your strength is actually this powerful. Zhang Yan spoke in a low voice, his gaze towards Feng Tianwu now extremely solemn. Whoosh. Almost at the instant, Zhang Yan's words fell. Surging, rampant flames also rose from his body. Unlike the red flames on Feng Tianwu, the flames on him were blue. Ice flames. Within the ice flames, waves of scorching heat and chilling cold emanated. A contradictory combination that caused the air around Zhang Yan's body to tremble, followed by faint popping sounds. Boom! Suddenly, Feng Tianwu moved, her speed so swift that she left behind only a fiery red blur as an overwhelming wave of scorching heat swept out and vast flames enveloped Zhang Yan's location. Whoosh, 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 whoosh! The long whip in Feng Tianwu's hand, like a red spiritual snake, shot out swiftly, transforming into a sky full of fiery rain that poured down on Zhang Yan, its speed like streaks of lightning striking down. Zhang Yan's face was extremely solemn. His hands trembled violently and swiftly danced in front of him. Finally, a thick shield, entirely composed of surging ice flames, condensed in front of him. Boom! 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 The sky-filling fiery rain formed by Feng Tianwu's whip swept down overwhelmingly, striking Zhang Yan's shield, causing the shield in front of him to tremble. Ultimately, it couldn't withstand the assault and was completely shattered. Whoosh! Almost at the moment the shield was shattered, Zhang Yan swiftly retreated, not daring to hesitate. I can only fight head-on. Taking a deep breath, Zhang Yan's gaze turned cold as he stared at the red-robed woman rushing towards him from a distance. The rampant flames swirling around her gave him an invisible sense of oppression. Whoosh! Seeing the red-robed woman swing her red long whip again and rush over, Zhang Yan, instead of retreating, advanced to meet her. The next moment, Zhang Yan extended both hands, wreathed in wisps of ice flames and lightning fast, grabbed at the red long whip. Crack! A loud bang resounded as the red long whip heavily struck Zhang Yan's palms and a destructive surge of fiery power swept out, pressing down on Zhang Yan's body. Ugh! Zhang Yan's blood and qi churned within him, his throat sweetened, and he directly spat out a dazzling mouthful of dark blood. However, although his internal organs were injured, Zhang Yan still firmly grasped the third-grade spirit whip in Feng Tianwu's hand. At the same time, icy cold aura swept out from his hands, intending to suppress Feng Tianwu's fire intent with his ice intent. Water extinguishes fire, ice condensed. From water is colder than water. Therefore, ice is much stronger than water in suppressing fire. Waves of icy aura spread from Zhang Yan's hands, sweeping through the third-grade spirit whip in Feng Tianwu's hand and engulfing her entire body. For a moment, the surging flames on Feng Tianwu's body paused slightly, seemingly suppressed. Seeing this scene, Zhang Yan's eyes lit up. However, his pupils quickly constricted again, and his expression drastically changed. Boom! The flames on Feng Tianwu's body, after pausing for a moment, suddenly exploded, instantly melting and dispelling the cold air that enveloped her, and the rampant flames surged into the red, long whip, imbuing it with even greater power. The long whip flickered. The flames surged, shaking Zhang Yan's hands open, and then a monstrous flame erupted, transforming into a giant fiery beast that pounced towards Zhang Yan with formidable momentum. Not good. Facing this scene, Zhang Yan's expression changed drastically, his pupils constricted to their extreme. Zhang Yan's ice concept might be able to counter the fire concept, but that's only if their powers are roughly equal. Now, facing Feng Tianwu's 8th level advanced fire concept, Zhang Yan's ice concept was not worth mentioning and was easily defeated. Whoosh! Whoosh! Facing the surging flames from the long whip in Feng Tianwu's hand, Zhang Yan gritted his teeth and unleashed both palms, expending the full power of 978 ancient horned dragons. However, against the vast flames sweeping out from Feng Tianwu's long whip, which contained the power of over 1,000 ancient horned dragons, his strength was still slightly inferior. Boom! A loud bang echoed, stirring up piercing air explosions, and the flame-giant beast formed by the sky-high flames engulfed Zhang Yan, gradually dissipating and disappearing after a moment. Zhang Yan, on the other hand, was sent flying backward, a sweetness in his throat, and he coughed up a mouthful of stagnant blood with a pale face. Here! Seeing Feng Tianwu continue to fly towards him, Zhang Yan's face darkened slightly, and he raised his hand, throwing out the 7th level Emperor Realm Fire Profound Fragment he had previously taken from the exquisite box. Clap! Feng Tianwu reached out and caught it, her eyes simultaneously glinting with coldness as she immediately fixed her gaze on Zhang Yan, radiating killing intent. Oh no! Upon seeing Feng Tianwu's murderous gaze sweep over him, Zhang Yan's face drastically changed. He finally realized that Feng Tianwu, to prevent him from spreading the news of her obtaining the profound fragment, clearly intended to take his life. Escape. Without any hesitation, Zhang Yan, enveloped in blue ice flames, transformed into a blue lightning bolt and fled, not looking back. After fleeing for a while, without sensing any whistling wind behind him, Zhang Yan's speed finally slowed down slightly. At the same time, cold sweat was still trickling down his forehead. Why didn't she chase after me? Could it be that I was overthinking it? Shaking his head, Zhang Yan's figure flickered again, then disappeared into another cave, completely vanishing. Because Zhang Yan fled quickly, he did not notice the anomaly that occurred with Feng Tianwu after his escape. When Feng Tianwu caught the 9th level Emperor Realm Profound Fragment that Zhang Yan threw, she indeed wanted to kill Zhang Yan to silence him, to prevent him from spreading the news of her obtaining the Profound Fragment. Once the news of her obtaining the Profound Fragment spread, she would face many troubles, and while she wasn't afraid of trouble, she also didn't like it. However, just as she was about to attack Zhang Yan, she found that the Profound Fragment in her hand seemed to resonate with a certain power within her body, causing her elemental energy to become uncontrollably agitated. At this moment, she could only watch helplessly as Zhang Yan fled from her sight, while frantically circulating her cultivation technique, trying her best to suppress the agitated elemental energy within her body. Is it the power from the fire spirit body acting up again? Feng Tianwu found this easy to guess. For a moment, a bitter smile involuntarily appeared at the corners of her lips. After finally calming the agitated elemental energy within her body, Feng Tianwu's eyes flashed, and she found that the profound fragment in her hand emitted a red, cold light, cutting her palm. Immediately, blood spurted from her palm, flowing continuously and staining half of her hand. Drip! Drip! Drops of blood fell from Feng Tianwu's hand onto the ground, making crisp sounds, just as Feng Tianwu's pretty face slightly changed, preparing to stop the bleeding with elemental energy. She then discovered that the profound fragment in her hand, which was shimmering with fiery red true energy, suddenly softened in a bizarre way, then transformed into a pool of fiery red liquid, which flowed into her body through the wound in her palm. At the same time, she found that the wound on her palm healed on its own. If it weren't for the bloodstains, she might have thought everything that just happened was an illusion. Where is that profound fragment? Feng Tianwu, who had come back to her senses, couldn't help but change her pretty face. She then remembered that the 9th level Emperor Realm Fire Profound Fragment seemed to have merged into her palm, into her body just now, at the same time. Feng Tianwu seemed to have sensed something, and her autumn eyes couldn't help but narrow. At this moment, she could clearly feel a scorching, warm current flowing from her palm into her arm, and then spreading throughout her entire body. Not only that, the power belonging to the fire spirit body, which had been dormant within her body, instantly became agitated after sensing the arrival of this scorching, warm current. It was as if an enthusiastic host was welcoming a guest. A moment later, Feng Tianwu seemed to sense something else, and with a thought, torrents of flames rose from her body, burning brightly and emitting waves of incredibly scorching aura. This is 9th level advanced fire concept? Almost as soon as the flames rose, Feng Tianwu subconsciously looked up at the void above her head, where the celestial phenomenon had already taken shape. 1,000 illusory ancient horned dragons coiled there, winding down, poised to strike. This moment, she had not used any elemental energy nor any spiritual artifacts, yet simply by using the fire concept to communicate with the power of heaven and earth, she had triggered such a celestial phenomenon. Unbeknownst to her, the fire concept she had comprehended had advanced further, from the 8th level void transformation concept to the 9th level void transformation concept. No, I feel like it can still be stronger. Just then, Feng Tianwu seemed to sense something, shaking her head in confusion, and then her mind moved again. Boom! Almost as soon as Feng Tianwu's thought moved, the flames entwined around her body surged again, and their color became even deeper. At the same time, the power of heaven and earth in the void above vibrated again, finally converging into the rudimentary form of 1,000 illusory ancient horned dragons. But unfortunately, before it could fully solidify, it dissipated again. As the rudimentary form of the 1,000 illusory ancient horned dragons, which had not yet solidified, dissipated, Feng Tianwu's pretty face suddenly changed, becoming incredibly pained, and she couldn't help but cry out. Just now, when she further activated the fire concept to elevate it, she felt as if her entire body was uncontrollably burning, and an inexplicable scorching power surged within her, almost bursting her apart. It was precisely because of this that she hastily stopped the advancement of the fire concept. At the same time, that inexplicable scorching power that spread throughout her body, almost bursting her apart, finally quieted down again. That was power originating from the fire spirit body, but it also seemed to have an additional power. That's right, it's the power transformed from that 9th level Emperor realm fire profound fragment. Feng Tianwu's pretty face turned pale. She had never expected that, after the profound fragment mysteriously transformed into a liquid and merged into her body, it would cause such a significant anomaly in her entire being. First, her fire concept mysteriously advanced to the 9th level advanced tier. Then, when she communicated with the 9th level advanced fire concept, she vaguely felt as if she could continue to elevate her fire concept. The fire concept, after its further elevation, was exactly twice as strong as the 9th level advanced fire concept. Perhaps that could no longer be considered the fire concept. Isn't that the power one can only possess after comprehending the 1st level Emperor realm fire profound? Thinking of this, Feng Tianwu couldn't help but gasp. Would it? 1st level Emperor realm, fire profound was exactly twice as strong as the 9th level advanced fire concept. Once communicated and activated, it was comparable to the power of 2,000 ancient horned dragons. I can communicate with and unleash the 1st level Emperor realm fire profound? Recalling what had just happened, Feng Tianwu's pretty face froze, her autumn eyes filled with disbelief. With a thought, Feng Tianwu began to inspect the situation within her body. Immediately, a deep, fiery red fragment appeared before her eyes. It was the fire concept fragment that had solidified within her body after she comprehended the advanced fire concept. And it was now the 9th level fire concept fragment. Soon, Feng Tianwu also discovered that her 9th level fire concept fragment was different from ordinary concept fragments. It had a small missing piece on it. On this small missing piece, wisps of fiery red true energy were shimmering, ready to burst forth. Isn't this the true energy shimmering on the surface of the profound fragment? My 9th level fire. Concept fragment actually has a tendency to transform into a 1st level Emperor realm fire profound fragment? Feng Tianwu's eyes widened, and her pretty face was once again filled with disbelief. However, although I can now communicate with and unleash the 1st level Emperor realm fire profound, it will trigger the power originating from the fire spirit body within me, almost bursting my body apart. Just now, if I hadn't promptly withdrawn the fire profound, my body would likely have burst apart in no time. By then, I wouldn't even have to wait until I'm 30. I would be blasted into ashes by the power of the fire spirit body! Thinking of this, Feng Tianwu gasped, still shaken by the experience. What exactly is going on? Thinking of the anomaly that had occurred to her, Feng Tianwu's pretty face was filled with nothing but bitter smiles. A moment later, slightly suppressing the throbbing in her heart and recalling the cause and effect, Feng Tianwu quickly had an answer in her mind. It's that 9th level Emperor realm fire profound fragment. It must be the power of my fire spirit body that caused it to turn into liquid and merge into my body, then prompting this anomaly in me. After confirming the reason, Feng Tianwu couldn't help but sigh. I don't know if it's a blessing or a curse. The fire concept has successfully advanced to the 9th level advanced. I can even risk exploding to forcibly communicate with and unleash the 1st level Emperor realm fire profound. One profound fragment caused such consequences, catching Feng Tianwu completely off guard. Let it be. Anyway, in a few years, if my cultivation can't break through to the void transformation realm, I'm doomed to die anyway.